What is popping, everyone? Welcome to episode 53 of the Fleaflicker NFL show, and actually an emergency podcast, even though I guess we're kind of a day late. Whatever. Matt Stafford got traded. Yeah, that's probably going to be the title of the podcast, just Matt Stafford getting traded. And I forgot to introduce myself. I am Umar. I'm sure you guys all know me by now, and I am joined once again with my great co-host, Amal Ronak. What's up, Amal?
What's up, Arib? Once again, this is a podcast that's just abruptly made. We just decided to make it last second, and we were actually going to plan on recording for this upcoming week's podcast regarding, of course, the Super Bowl recap, and that we're planning on doing that in a separate podcast. We'll be doing that. We'll release that towards the end of this week, and on our thoughts about that. But this is a podcast that we wanted to get out there right away because this is a league-changing, in my opinion, type of trade that just went down. And normally, you don't see league-changing trades made every day or even every year. You don't get to see these type of trades going on. And this is the first time in NFL history that we're seeing two former number one picks getting traded and traded in the same trade. It's definitely a monumental trade. And we can dive right into it.
Yeah, so let's hop right into it. So Matt Stafford of the Lions, he had already come out with a deal with the Lions saying that they're both going to mutually part ways. Matt Stafford's been the quarterback for the Lions for the last 11 years, and he didn't want to be part of another rebuild, and the Lions were willing to respect his decision to move on and find another team and find another contender, which is the key thing there. And, I mean, they did him nice, to say the least. So Matt Stafford was traded to the LA Rams in exchange for quarterback Jared Goff, like you said, 2 future first-round picks, which will go for the 2022 draft and the 2023 draft, and then 1 third-round pick. And so Matt Stafford will be done in the number 9, I'd assume, for the LA Rams, and Jared Goff will be holding his number 16 with the Detroit Lions. So there's a lot of ways to look about this trade, Amal. And I think the first thing, I think we should start with Matthew Stafford, because I mean, you just can't help but feel bad for the guy. His entire career, he's been on a team that has gone through multiple rebuilds, multiple head coaches. They've made the playoffs 3 times, and all 3 times they could never get a win. And finally, after years of suffering with that team, he is going to a team that with Sean McVay, the new head coach, who isn't really new that now. He's going into his 5th season, but out of the 4 seasons that Sean McVay has coached for the LA Rams, he has gone to 3 playoff berths. And then he's won 3 games, I believe, in the playoffs, including a Super Bowl appearance. And right now, the Rams are a true Super Bowl contender. And Matt Stafford has never even been on a true playoff contender, so he's definitely very much getting a pretty big jump there in that aspect, where his career was wasted away because of his loyalty, and now he has a legitimate chance at least maybe making, if not winning a Super Bowl, at least making a good playoff run to maybe a championship game or a Super Bowl. So just to start off with Matthew Stafford, he's going to a team that is a pretty well-known winner in the last half decade, at least Amal. So Matthew Stafford has been nice by the Lions, to say the least. He got he went to probably the best team he could have gone to, other than Indy and the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, I think you brought up a lot of good points. I think this was a match made in heaven. Sean McVay was looking for that quarterback that was a perfect fit for the system, and I believe 2 weeks ago, or actually I don't even know if it was 2 weeks. I think last week there was a report that came out that said John Wolford and Jared Goff is open competition for who's the starting quarterback of the LA Rams.
This is like this week.
Yeah, and that's already a sign saying, okay, at that case, we really don't value this guy as a true QB1 yet. And if the fact that the guy that's undrafted is already contending for the starting job, I think that goes to show that Jared Goff isn't the right man for that system. And they looked for that perfect fit. Apparently, the Rams were looking for a quarterback. The past 2 weeks, they've been looking at film of the different quarterbacks that are on the market. And even the Rams went after freaking Aaron Rodgers. They were pestering the Packers to get Aaron Rodgers. I believe that was obviously the top of their priority. And they got Matthew Stafford. Yeah, and they got Matthew Stafford. And like you said, we'll dive into the Matthew Stafford part of it. Matt Stafford hasn't been really on any good team, bro, in his entire career. of course, great receivers like Calvin Johnson. He had great weapons like Golden Tate, Marvin Jones. But I think overall, Reeb, you can definitely say that he's never been a part of an elite defense like the defense he has right now. This is probably the best defense in football. I think it's fair to say. And they traded 2 firsts for Jalen Ramsey last year, and now he's extended and he's there for quite some time. Matt Stafford's there. They just announced that he will probably stay for the next 2 years. He's going to play out the contract and then look for the contract extension when he's a free agent, I believe. That's probably what's going to be the plan there. But I mean, just the records that this man has. I mean, he has the most passing touchdowns by a rookie quarterback. He's the fastest player to reach 15,000, 20,000, 25,000, 30,000, 40,000 career passing yards. He's the fastest player to reach 3,000 completions. I mean, he has the most passing yards in the first 100 games, most fourth quarter comebacks in a season. So this dude's a clutch guy.
8.
Most game winning kind of drives in a season, and he has 8 of those exactly.
Yep,
and
26.
He has the most passing attempts in the season, most pass attempts per game in a season. I'm just listing out the records because this dude did so much over this past decade for the Lions, and for the team to be that bad and he's performing that well, it's just incredible, man. Yes, he hasn't won a playoff game. Yes, he's only made the playoffs 3 times and he's 0-3. But I mean, come on, I can't stress this enough. The defense that he's had, man, it's been atrocious. And right now, this past year, it didn't help that Kenny Golladay got hurt a lot throughout the season, so he didn't have a true wide receiver 1. The O-line was still kind of suspect. The defense was so suspect. So he won't have any of those. He has no run game still. I mean, DeAndre Swift, of course, carried it on towards the end of the year, but I mean, at that point, who cares anymore? They're nowhere near contention. They're not even third place in their division. It doesn't even matter. Now, when you're looking at the LA Rams are in a stacked division, so it's going to be competitive, but you're right alongside, I mean, arguably top 2 receiving core, Arib. Can you say that? Top 2? Top 3? It's Cup and Woods. I mean, those dudes are insane, man. And the fact that he's having 2 great receivers instead of the one that he had in Megatron back in the day. But he now has a great O-line with him, and he has a great receiving core. He has a great running back in Cam Akers there, and he also has Darrell Henderson as well. And then the defense that's there, and then he has arguably one of the best minds in football today, and that's Sean McVay.
I was just gonna say that's the most important.
Yeah,
thing.
I think that's probably the most important thing, because I think in terms of the fit and the teams that he wanted to go for, I think all the teams that were interested in him, I think he was fine with, because they all had great offensive minds. And the team that he didn't want to go to was indeed the New England Patriots. They also said that. There was also reports that said that. And it's because not just that, it's because Matt Patricia's there too. And he was just with Matt Patricia in Detroit.
Matt Patricia, former Detroit head coach.
Yep. And he got fired, I believe, within the first half of the season. And that's important for Matt Stafford, man. He's looking for winning now. He wants to be known as like a top 10 quarterback all time. And he has to, in order for him to get there, I think this is the type of franchise he needs. He needs
playoff success.
Yep. Exactly, and he needs that playoff success. Obviously, I think we both expect Stafford in some time in his career with the Rams to make the Super Bowl. I think it's fair to say that should happen, but
that should be the expectation.
That should be the expectation, because I mean this team is stacked, man. And of course, we can't really make any predictions about the division yet, because there's still a lot of bells and whistles that are still loose, and you don't know.
Even started.
Yeah, the off season, the free agent free agency doesn't even start in 2 months, Arib. You can't. It's so a lot of things can happen. The NFL draft hasn't happened yet. The Niners could go crazy and they could get Deshaun Watson, who we'll talk about next, obviously, about the different suitors and everything for him. But yeah, this is just quite crazy, man. What's been going on with Matt Stafford? I think Matt Stafford's in a place home. He's with his best friend Clayton Kershaw, living in LA.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's a big one too. Clayton Kershaw's probably the best pitcher in baseball. He plays for the LA Dodgers, and yeah, man. I mean, I'm genuinely happy for the guy. I think he's gonna have great success here. He's gonna love it, and yeah, I think now we can cover, I guess, the Jared Goff aspect of the trade.
Yeah, I want to talk about a lot of things. I think we should talk about the Rams first, and mostly because I think it's a more sane, like a better transition, but also
Yeah,
because
definitely.
you hit on a lot of stuff there. You probably listed stats and like records and accolades for a good like a minute there, right? And I think forget all that because stats are just stats when it comes at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like there's so many games where a player like Matthew Stafford, it says on the final stat sheet that he threw a pick or, he lost because a fumble or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's because of the game script. You need to watch the game and watch the film and forget film, just watching live action. Matthew Stafford is just a better quarterback than Jared Goff. And that's what the Rams got. They got
Miles better.
a miles better upgrade over Jared Goff. And in a few regards, Jared Goff, I think, is a pretty decent player. I think he's an average quarterback, maybe slightly above average quarterback. But when it comes down to it, he very much is a guy who's dependent on his head coach. He's dependent on sort of everything around him for the team to do well. And wins are not a quarterback stat; they are a team stat. And Matthew Stafford is definitely the pinnacle and the definition of that, as well as Deshaun Watson this season.
And
But
Jimmy Garoppolo.
and Jimmy Garoppolo, yes, wins are definitely a quarterback stat. But when it comes down to it, the reason why the Rams were not really looked at as a true Super Bowl contender this year was because of Jared Goff. And we had multiple podcasts, especially the one after the Miami game, which I believe was around week 7. So they lost that game, and Jared Goff had 4 turnovers that game. And we both came into the quote unquote studio and we're like, Jared Goff sucks. And he's very much an up and down quarterback who has to get his hand held by his offensive mastermind, Sean McVay, in order for the team to have any success. And I feel like Jared Goff is a guy who he hit his ceiling, and whether or not that's because of his talent or his drive to be great, whatever it might be, but he hit his ceiling. And I've got to applaud the Rams for going out there and getting a guy who I think from just a cerebral mind, he's played the game for way longer. He knows what he's looking at for coverages. If the communication is cut between the head coach and the quarterback, you can definitely trust Matthew Stafford to make the right read most of the time, as most quarterbacks do, or most elite quarterbacks do. And that was just something Jared Goff was not able to do. And second, when the sort of the play call goes to shit, if you will, like if things go wrong, Jared Goff's going to bail on the play. He might throw a pick. He might fumble. He might just throw it away, which is, I guess, throwing it away would be the safer option. But Matthew Stafford gives you someone who is just starting from his arm. His arm is way better. As an athlete, he can run the ball a little bit more. He can run around the pocket, navigate it more. He has a better pocket awareness, better pocket mobility. Just in every single aspect, he's a better quarterback than Jared Goff. And you're getting someone who, I mean, like I just said it, he's just better than Jared Goff. You're not going to be capped by your quarterback anymore. You're not going to be held back by him. And I highly doubt we're going to walk into a game next season, into the studio next season saying, you know what, they lost that game because of Matt Stafford. Maybe it happens once or twice, but it's not going to happen 4, 5, 6, 7 times in the season where you're like,
Definitely. Yeah.
Jared Goff was the reason why they lost, whether because he might have not made backbreaking mistakes, but he just wasn't good enough. And they're getting someone who is just far and away better in every single aspect of football. Forget the stats. Look at the film. Forget the film. Just watch them play football live, even on the broadcast copy of the game. You can tell who's a better quarterback, who has the better arm talent, who has a better football mind. It's far and away not Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford. And they can legitimately be Super Bowl contenders. They're not going to be held back by their quarterback anymore. And I've got to give a round of applause to Sean McVay. And I believe I'm forgetting the GM's name there, but the GM of the Rams for definitely pulling the trigger and realizing that their quarterback was not it. And Les Snead is the GM for the record. So shout out to both those guys for realizing that they needed to improve. And yeah, they improved when they had to.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I think what's, I guess, super important, I guess, in this trade was also the fact that the price tag that was taken to get him. I think that was quite shocking. I think, I think guys from ESPN were saying that the price tag was, I think most teams were willing to pay first and then a little bit more, maybe in terms of like players or maybe in terms of picks. They were willing to give a first and maybe a little bit more. I think the Rams just outdid themselves completely, and they went for the 2 firsts and a third, and Jared Goff, I think that may be overpaying Arib, but I
I don't think it
honestly think
matters.
I don't think that it matters exactly because I think even the Rams, you could honestly argue that they overpaid for Jalen Ramsey. 2 firsts. Obviously, 2 firsts is never. You don't obviously ever want to give up 2 firsts. But I mean, you have to look at where they got what they got with the 2 firsts, man. That he helps their defense out tremendously, right? You
Mhm.
can't pay a price tag, put a price tag on a guy that changes your defense, changes the entire aspect of the game on one side of the field. So you can't be nickeling and diming for when you're having players like that. And when it comes to Matthew Stafford, if you knew that you were one quarterback piece away from winning a Super Bowl or getting to the Super Bowl, being a true contender, I think you should easily have no problem giving up your pieces for that. Because unless the Rams really believed that with the next year, they don't even have a first round this year, regardless. This first round pick goes to Jacksonville this year for the Jalen Ramsey trade that happened last year. The next year's draft pick, do they really believe that next year's draft pick they're going to use that to tremendously bolster their team? They'll stick with the second round picks. Cam Akers was the second round pick. Cam Akers is looking great out there. So I don't think that they're necessarily caring about necessarily having the first round pick because their first round picks are always going to be late. So I think in terms of that aspect, I think the Rams did the job, did the right thing and got the job done. But I think this will definitely impact future dealings for future trades about future players because as great as Matt Stafford is, he's also 32, which is still young, relatively young, obviously, but he's 32. Getting 2 firsts and I'd say a top half quarterback. I think that's fair to say. And Jared Goff and a third round pick. I think that's incredible compensation for the Lions. And I think now with their first rounder this year, they could go multiple different ways. They could look at either drafting a quarterback. They could look into that option if they don't believe in Goff and as in he's only a short term play. They could think of that. They could go into trading up. They have 2 firsts this year. They could trade up and get a guy like Zach Wilson. They could do that. They could go into the aspect of trading 2 firsts and getting another player. That's also possible too. I mean, there's so many different avenues that the Detroit Lions can go into. They could trade down and get more first. I mean, it's just a plentiful amount of options that are there for this Lions team. And yeah, I think overall, I think it's fair to say the Lions may have won this trade, but I think it's definitely also fair to say that the Rams are reaching have done everything they can for this offseason already to be in Super Bowl contention for this upcoming season.
Yeah, so a couple things right there. I think this is a win-win trade, and you can definitely say, and I would agree with you 100%, that the Rams overpaid for Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford has been injured the last couple of seasons. He finished the entire season last year, but he was hurt for like a good portion, at least the last few games. And the
We
season
called him
before
a
that hit,
warrior. He was
yeah,
playing through a lot of these injuries. Warrior.
yeah. I mean, that's what he is. He is a warrior. And yeah, you can definitely make the argument they overpaid. And I'd agree with you. They did overpay. But there's another thing you also got to keep in mind, right? Aaron Donald is 29. Aaron Donald is the heart of that team. And right now, you're in a must-win Super Bowl window the next few years, the next 2-3 years, while Aaron Donald still has some sort of youth in him. And you got to use that to your full advantage. You've got to at least make a good playoff run, make a good Super Bowl run again. And if Matthew Stafford gets you that and can get you that far, then I 100% think it's a good trade. And like you said, they're hitting on these later round picks. They're drafting pretty decently for a team that hasn't had a first round pick in the last 5 drafts almost. And they're not going to have one for, I think, 7 drafts total until 2024 is their first draft pick, which means I think their current first round pick, back in the last time they picked their first round pick for their next time would be like in 7th or 8th grade, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, the Rams, they definitely needed to get a quarterback and improve, and they did that. And for the Lions, I think Jared Goff is a guy who ranges somewhere between like a top 15 guy to like top 25-ish, like depending on what you get. Maybe some days you get a top 10 quarterback or like at least number 10, 11. And I think what's important is, and something that we heard from the new head coach there, Dan Campbell, was establishing a culture and how it would take time. And getting someone like Jared Goff essentially removes the idea from the team and all the veterans and all the talented players there that the Lions are actively trying to tank, because Jared Goff is a quarterback who has had success, and it might be laughable because sometimes he has absolute garbage games. I mean, he just looks like he shouldn't be on a football field sometimes, but at the end of the day, he has had some success and he's a veteran quarterback at this point of his career. And you're getting someone that might not necessarily be like a rallying cry for everyone on the team, but at the very least, you're setting a culture that has not been present in Detroit for a long time. So that's why I think even if you draft a quarterback this year with, I think they have the 7th or 8th pick, I think 7th overall pick in this year's draft. If they draft a guy like a Trey Lance out of North Dakota State, or I don't know, like a Mac Jones out of Alabama, or they trade up and draft someone else, or another quarterback falls, whatever it might be. If they do, then great. You can just get Jared Goff there, and Jared Goff can sort of sit behind. Jared Goff can be the starter, and while you're at it, you're not ruining the culture of your team. You're not tanking, and you can develop one of these rawer quarterback prospects for a couple years, and then boom, year 2, year 3, you have a true, top 10, top 5 level quarterback if you let them develop, like a Patrick Mahomes, like an Aaron Rodgers, and that might be the play. So I think establishing a culture is very much an interesting thing. And also, one little known fact about this trade is that the contracts were switched, which is why the Rams gave up a lot of money. The Rams were paying Jared Goff substantially more money than they were paying Matthew Stafford.
Yes,
Looking up right now, Matthew Stafford contract, I believe, was way less.
at the time that Matthew Stafford signed his contract. By the way,
He was the highest paid quarterback.
He was the highest paid quarterback and highest paid NFL player in NFL history. So kind of crazy that Jared Goff's bum ass is that much more than
And Matthew Stafford's getting paid $27 million per year. Jared Goff, I believe, is around 33.5 or 34.
Yeah, exactly. So an incredible difference.
You traded that much away for the Rams because you were dumping the contract as well, which is another smart move for them.
I think that's why the third was there, probably.
Yeah, and even the extra first, in all honesty. And the Lions, it might suck that they're taking this very large contract of Jared Goff's this early into the rebuilding time. But when it comes down to it, I think building the career, building the foundation of the team, a winning mentality is much more important than the extra 6 or 7 million you're paying a guy like like Jared Goff. So at the end of the day, it's a win-win trade. I think you're getting a decent quarterback who can help rally the players for the Lions and making sure you're not like a full tanking team. You're establishing a winning culture. You got rid of a player and got 2 first-round picks and a third to help future drafts and rebuild your team through the draft. And Dan Campbell has already said that this is a long rebuild. He has a 6-year contract as the head coach of the Lions. So I very much think that this is a win-win trade for both teams. Before we move on, I want to talk about Jared Goff because he's the 4th component of this trade. And Jared Goff, he was rumored to go out partying and stuff like that. And if you just look at him on the field, he doesn't seem to be a leader that Matthew Stafford very much is. I think Matthew Stafford's more vocal for the Lions, and he's going to carry that over to the Rams. They're going to get a legit leader. Jared Goff wasn't like that. He's a more quiet guy. And at the end of the day, he had hit a plateau, and that plateau might be because of talent. But at the same time, you're hearing stories of him going out and partying, not so much now during COVID, but pre-COVID. And I think especially 2019, you'd hear stories of him going out and clubbing and all that. And he wasn't improving on the field. And I think this is a great move for Jared Goff personally. I think it really would light a fire underneath him to be like, take a look in the mirror and be like, you know what, maybe I was the reason why the Rams weren't doing good, and take some accountability. And he can maybe use this as a fire for him to improve, just flat out. Maybe put some more work in, put some more time in investing in your body, whatever it might be. But if you can improve from this as Jared Goff, this might be the best thing that could happen in his career, period. And I know it's not necessarily likely because Jared Goff is not the most athletically gifted guy. But if Jared Goff can improve from this, then it's definitely well worth it. And he had a quote coming out today in a statement saying that he wants to be, in Detroit because he thinks that he'll be valued there, which very much shows that he was not valued that highly. At least he did not feel that way. And maybe the idea of him being valued and that sort of self-worth that he might have with Detroit will help him be a better quarterback in the future. So I think for Jared Goff, this might be the best thing that happened to him.
Yeah, I think Jared Goff also said, "I'm happy to be in a place that wants me." I don't know if that's implying that the Rams didn't want him. I think maybe that was the case and probably that he felt later on towards his Rams day, probably after the loss that he had, and how they were already looking for new quarterbacks. The Rams were, and he wasn't kept in the loop by any means for sure if that was the case. So I think you're right. I think this could potentially be the best we could see of Jared Goff. Maybe new scenery is important. Obviously, now the Lions' future outlook isn't the best looking right now. I think they don't have Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones are both entering into free agency. They got to retain at least one of them, man. If they don't retain both, it's gonna be a rough season for Jared Goff for sure. And having your number one receiver probably be like Marvin Hall, I mean, you're gonna be dead in that case. I think you have to re-sign one of those two at least to help progress the growth of Jared Goff. And I'm not sure what the Lions can be doing right now. They could obviously trade Matt Stafford, trade Jared Goff. That's obviously a good option as well to a team that needs a quarterback. Like I guess the Bears. The Bears are a team that definitely is in need of a quarterback, or the Colts that are in need of a quarterback as well. But I mean, they can go multiple different ways, man. I mean, if they're interested in trading up for Zach Wilson, maybe just have Jared Goff play out his contract and maybe start Zach Wilson. I mean, there's just a multiple different ways that you can go. And then when it comes to Jared Goff, I think you hit it right. I think there were reports of him partying throughout the offseason. And I think actually not even just offseason. Like I heard like during game weeks, he'd be partying like during the weekdays on like a Friday, and the game would be on a Sunday, and he'd be partying, which is quite crazy, by the way. And he did this, I believe, in the 2019 season. Obviously, we don't know 100% if that's true or not. But even if that isn't true, it's just. I mean,
it's not a good look.
It's not a good look, regardless. Yeah, and I mean, if the fact that teammates are going out and willing to like make up rumors like that, I mean, you never know about the situation that's happening. So I think Jared Goff is gonna be humbled here. He went to Cal. He went to the University of California. He got drafted by the Rams. Played a year in St. Louis. Then went to LA. So he's been in LA basically his entire career. I mean, college, it was in LA as well. So now he's gonna go back to Detroit, very cold Detroit, and he's gonna see I don't know how his entire mentality will be changing from this, but I would hope that it would change in a positive outlook, and that even though his career may not end with the Lions per se, but if it does, that means something clearly that's really good is happening in his career. So still wish him nothing but the best. He's definitely still a good quarterback to have on your team. I believe even years from down the line, we could definitely talk about Jared Goff being one of those quarterbacks that could be borderline underrated, because he's now on a bad team now, but obviously he was on a good team to start his career. And we could be looking down years down the line that, okay, he was on a good team early in his career, but he was also young. And then he's playing now the majority of his career on a team that's like mediocre, like the Lions. So just a lot of interesting pieces here, Reeb. I think what is very fair to say is if Jared Goff had won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, he would not be in this position. I think that's
yeah, and I think that game is sort of the thing that was lingering in the back of Sean McVay's mind, Les Snead's mind, even the owner's mind. And there were like, I hit on it. There were multiple games where we came in and we were like, Jared Goff sucks. He's the reason they lost. That's the biggest reason. And that's probably the biggest
that actually is the reason that they lost. That's actually the reason they lost. So obviously you can say the Rams defense was really good. The Patriots defense was really good. Yeah, the Pats had probably the best defense that year. The Rams probably had the second best defense that year. Those are all very true.
They held them to 16 points.
Yeah, the game sucked. It did suck, but I think the fact that Tom Brady with less weapons outplayed you, I think that itself says something. And it's just the fact that, Jared Goff had everything in his hands. He had an MVP running back I think it's very fair to say MVP quality running
Todd
back and
Gurley,
Todd
yep.
Gurley. CJ Anderson was balling that playoff run too. They had Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods back then as well.
Brandon Cooks.
Brandon Cooks was their they even had Brandon Cooks, Tyler Higbee, and that entire crew. Regardless, the point is he had all these weapons. That O-line was probably the best then, and I mean he didn't produce, and I think that is the reason that ultimately they gave up on him, because this past year he didn't live up to expectations whatsoever, and yes, the Rams got past the first round. They exceeded my expectations. They exceeded your expectations in that aspect. But, I mean, at the end of the day, they got clapped. They got clapped by the Packers. It wasn't close. It was nowhere near close. They could have played any other team that's remaining in either conference, and they would have got clapped. They would have been clapped by the Ravens. They would have got clapped by the Bills, Chiefs. They would have been clapped by the Packers, and they got clapped by the Packers, and they got clapped by, and they would have been clapped by the Bucks too. It's just not. It was nowhere near. They're not on the. They were not playing well with Jared Goff. Yes, Jared Goff was hurt during the playoff run that he had, so I appreciate him playing through the thumb injury. But I mean, the dude just even before the thumb injury, he hasn't been playing the best football. And we're talking about Carson Wentz having a bad year this year. But I mean, I really don't want to say this, but Jared Goff's been having almost those type of years every year in his career. And obviously the year they went to the Super Bowl, he had an incredible year that year. So I'm not gonna hamper him on that. But
He's always had moments.
But he's only had great moments. He's been generally a very inconsistent average quarterback. I think that at the end of the day, that's what he is. He's an average quarterback that sometimes has great moments. I think that's the pure description of Jared Goff compared to a guy like Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott. I think those guys are definitely at least more on a consistent basis. Wentz had a down year this year, but Jared Goff, it's very hard to say he's had an up year. That's all my point is. And I think he'll definitely bring that out in terms of passing yards at least. And I think he'll be that player, that star player for the Lions, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we can move on to the other thing we wanted to talk about, which is very much related to this topic, with the QB carousel. And I was not expecting a QB carousel trade to happen this early on with Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford. But another key cog in this piece, and especially in this carousel, is Houston Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson, and he has officially come out saying that he wants to be traded. And the GM for the Texans, Nick Caserio, said he has no intentions of trading Deshaun Watson. And I think Deshaun Watson, this is a very smart move by him for wanting out, because all he had to do was look at the guy we just talked about, Matthew Stafford, where his entire career he was with an incompetent team. They never had the right coach, never had the right team around him, never had the right GM, could never build a team around him. And that all falls on the owner of the Lions at the end of the day. And right now, if you're talking about bad owners, the worst owner in all of football is probably Cal McNair of the Houston Texans. And there's no reason to think that the Houston Texans are going to sort of turn it around there. They hired a new head coach, by the way, which is something that isn't really even worth talking about, because it's a guy who I have a lot of respect for, but it's not a guy that I think is going to be successful. And that might be harsh, but they hired a guy named, I think his name is David Culley from the Ravens. He was the passing games coordinator there. And for those of you who don't know, the Ravens had the worst passing attack in all of football.
It doesn't make any sense.
So yeah, they hired a guy who was very much, like, we were talking about a guy who was under the radar, and Nick Sirianni getting hired for the Eagles. I think, is it Dan Culley, David Culley? I'm going to look this up now. It's
the guys that were under the radar, I believe, were Eric Bieniemy, Leslie Frazier, and the Colts defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus. Those were the three guys that were really under the radar.
But David Culley is
and this dude
even below that.
And he's on another level. Yeah, exactly. He's that dude, David Culley, in my opinion, is fourth on those other four guys. At least those guys have coaching experience. I don't know what this dude has done in his career to make him automatically leapfrog himself to become head coach. You can explain his resume to me for him. I don't know what he's done.
Yeah, exactly. And so obviously this was not the hire that Deshaun Watson wanted to happen. And I think if it was anyone other than Eric Bieniemy, he would be doing the same thing he's doing right now. He wants out. all you got to do is look at Matthew Stafford. 11 years in the league. He's been underrated that entire time. And most importantly, forget about your own personal feeling of being underrated. Maybe you're not getting the respect you want. He hasn't won. And I think you can clearly see Deshaun Watson. He hates losing. I don't think I've seen a guy hating losing more than Deshaun Watson. And just look at him on the sideline this season. Like multiple times, it looks like he's about to cry, or he's got his arms in his hands, and he's just very much depressed about his current predicament. And I think he realized that this is not where I want to be. This is not how I'm going to win football games. And when it comes down to it, I think forget money, forget everything else, respect. I think he wants to win football games, and he's not going to do it in Houston with Cal McNair, who didn't even attend the press conference for David Culley after he got hired, which tells you all you need to know about bad ownership right there. Bad ownership, and that's why Deshaun Watson wants out. And I think it's very odd that at least publicly, the Texans aren't sort of thinking about trading him. And I get they might be trying to leverage it, saying that because right now they have no leverage. If Deshaun Watson doesn't want to show up to camp, doesn't want to play football, fine, you can fine him. But man's already
he can take on the fans. He can take on those fines.
And exactly, and also the fans, the Houston Texans fans. I've never seen, other than Detroit Lions fans, people who are that supporting of their quarterback wanting to leave the team. Like, it's honestly phenomenal. Brett Coleman, who is a huge Texans fan, has already said he's not even following the Texans anymore. He's going to change allegiances and go wherever Deshaun Watson goes. I mean, that tells you all you need to know. The Houston Texans fans are more fans of players like Deshaun Watson, like J.J. Watt, who might also be gone, the longtime defensive end for the Texans. They're more fans of they are than they are of the team. And that tells you all you need to know about the bad ownership there. Deshaun Watson wants out, and I think the smart move for the Texans would be to saying what they're doing right now, which is saying they're not going to trade him, try to get as much value as you can.
They have to say that.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you can get massive first round picks for Deshaun Watson. At least 3. It would probably be the biggest trade ever in all of sports history so far in the NFL. And I think you've got to honor his decision, because you can fine him, but at the end of the day, he can take those fines on. He's a millionaire. He has ads. He has commercials. He's already gotten paid multiple times before this. You can take on the financial strain of sitting out, and you're just sort of ruining your look as a franchise as well. Other players won't want to come to you, because if you don't want a guy who doesn't want to, if you don't want to trade a guy who doesn't even want to be in your building, I mean, that tells you all you need to know about stinginess, about bad ownership, about bad leadership. Bad, just add any other adjective there. Bad everything is what the Texans are. Like,
yeah, definitely. Also, in terms of one of the biggest trades in NFL and sports history, I obviously think the Anthony Davis trade to the Lakers was definitely bigger. But I think overall, regardless, this is probably the biggest trade in NFL history for sure. I think this is massive. I thought definitely like the Jalen Ramsey trade was big. I thought because normally back in the day, nobody makes 2 first-round pick trades. So Laramie Tunsil trade was big too. But this is like 2 first-round picks, a third, and a quarterback. That's like average to above average quarterback. And that competition is insane. And now
Deshaun
you're talking
Watson's
about
better.
And now Deshaun Watson. And exactly. So Stafford's probably on the bottom end of the top 10. From probably
like 8 to 10.
8 to 10, right? I think that's fair to say. And Deshaun Watson is probably top 5, ranging from 3 to 5. I think that's fair. Yeah,
and
3 to 5.
The thing is, forget the numbers. There's a tier gap there.
Exactly, and there's a huge tier gap after the top 5. I think it's also fair to say too. I think he is a tier above Matt Stafford. I think that's at the end of the day, that's the situation here. And if you're getting a quarterback that's a tier better and a tier more consistent, he's definitely a better thrower of the ball, more mobile, better decision maker. If you're getting all that in Deshaun Watson, I think he's going to get. And right now, I believe the preliminary talks are the Texans want at least 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and at least 2 defensive starters. That's their.
I think that's a lot, and I don't think that's going to happen. But
and I
if
think
you add in picks, like that can definitely happen.
Yeah, I think 2 defensive starters is definitely that. I don't know any team that would be willing to part up 2 defensive players and 2 firsts and 2 seconds, because then you're already putting stress on that defense. So not many teams are willing to immediately make that type of move. I think that asking price is it's going to be a lot, man. I think instead of two defense starters, I think it's just gonna be a pick heavy trade. I think. What do you think, Arib? I think it's gonna be pick heavy.
Yeah, and I think that as well. It's definitely going to be a pick heavy trade. There's no other way around it. Like you're
Yeah, I
not
think
trading away that much for one player who can. I mean, if they get hurt, then your season's over essentially. But um, Deshaun Watson definitely should want out. He probably will get traded, and if he doesn't get traded, I'm going to assume he's not going to play this season.
He's gonna be on that Le'Veon Bell holdout grind. I think that's the one and I'm pretty sure he would be willing to do that. I think he can afford it. He's got a lot of endorsement money, so I definitely don't.
And at the end of the day, Amal, I don't.
At the end of the day, it's also the Texans are losing out on that. I don't know why they'd wait.
They're losing out on that, and also they're rooting their rep even more with forget fans, forget everything around that. They're rooting with potential free agents who might want to come to their team. Like no one's like you might want to pay them, but if you see how you're treating a star, the face of the franchise, which is what Deshaun Watson is, if this is how you're treating him by not respecting his wishes, then why would anyone want to come to Houston?
Exactly.
The culture there is very poor. I can understand why Deshaun Watson wants out. I honor his decision, and I hope that the Texans honor his decision for wanting to leave and trade him. That's it, though. I think the quarterback carousel this year is very interesting. We've already seen two big names move. Aaron Rodgers probably won't move, and I think we both said that we bet on him not moving. But that's a name out there.
It's still a name, yeah. Carson Wentz, Watson. Definitely. Yeah.
These are five guys at the very least, and we've already seen two of them move. Guys, Dak Prescott as well, six quarterbacks, and these are six guys who, at the very least, have been very good top five players at some point in their career.
At some point, yes.
Or at least had top five moments. And that's just crazy to think about that we might be seeing that. And I mean, the offseason has already started, Amal. It's official.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great time. Definitely the top teams in the draft right now. I think like in terms of the draft order, I think like teams like the Jets, the Dolphins, they're going to be heavy into these top six quarterbacks that we've just listed here. Those guys are going to be looking at it. Interesting to ask you, Ray, do you think Jacksonville will get into this, or do you think Urban Meyer? Do you think Urban Meyer and that entire crew, they're just going to stick to their guns? You stick to the young quarterback because there's no cap hit with Trevor Lawrence, and you already have a great talent, and he's probably the most talented quarterback to ever come out of the draft. Just stick to that, or you can trade that. I'm pretty sure the Texans would swap. Because I'm just asking, you don't think that the Jags would ever would be willing to trade Trevor Lawrence for?
No, you don't trade Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, he is an unknown, but at the end of the day, you hit on it. Cap hit, all of that. You're a rebuilding team. You can't be trying to spend that much money for one guy, and when you don't have talent around him. At the end of the day,
that's my
wins, and that's what Urban Meyer is coming in to do with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's coming in to win. And he can't do that if you have an elite quarterback, but a crappy team around him. And we've seen Deshaun Watson lose 12 games this last season.
Deshaun Watson does have a no trade clause, so he's going to force his way to the team that he wants at the end of the day. It will be similar to the Matt Stafford situation where he is going to be happy with the team he gets. No doubt about it. Mm-hmm. And the Texans have zero leverage in the situation. They can keep finding him. It doesn't matter. I think they're just hurting themselves. And I think Adam Schefter even disclosed, I believe last week, that there is some really bad organizational problems that he's not even willing to say. But there are definitely some problems that are going on with this Houston Texans franchise. And I can definitely, there's definitely something to do with, there's got to be something that's going on. Because I think players have, nobody expresses extreme frustration. It's different from expressing frustration from losing, and then there's a difference in expressing frustration from like management. I think there's definitely something going on behind the scenes that none of us know about with this Texans franchise regarding maybe the owner, the general manager. It's unknown, but I think there's definitely something going on that's toxic, and I think that's the root issue of why all these players are going to start wanting out and leaving the Houston Texans franchise.
Yeah, they're very much not trending in the right direction to say
Yeah,
to
by
say the
no
least.
means. Yeah.
Anything else you want to say before we head out? I'm on a pretty short podcast today, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing now, as a Colts fan, I was honestly, by the way, I don't know if you listened to our podcast, I believe it was last week. We completely ruled out the Rams for any of these trade possibilities because we never in our wildest dreams expected Jared Goff to be moved, because that's essentially a trade dump, bro, a contract dump for them. Mike Lombardi, former GM, he said, he straight up said, you will never see a quarterback, a player in NFL history get a contract dump the way Jared Goff was just treated. They paid the man to be the highest quarterback in NFL history at the time, trade the man, and then dump the contract with it. I mean,
A year later,
it's just incredible. You'll never ever see that in sports, man. You will never see that. That's insane.
Money talks usually.
That's insane. And I think that at the end of the day, we never expected the Rams to really get into these situations, because we never thought they just paid the guy. We never thought that they'd immediately get into moving Jared Goff. I thought they'd give one more year. But my goodness, they proved us wrong, and they proved us wrong big time. They did the right thing, and they did the smart move. And yeah, now where this is leave my Colts, I'm kind of disappointed because I expected Matthew Stafford, honestly, to be either a Colt or a Niner. I thought those were the two ideal fits for him. Colts, obviously, there's still great quarterbacks left on the market. Even on the free agency market, there's guys like Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston could easily be a good fit for the Colts. Trading for Carson Wentz, that's also not a bad option either, considering Nick Sirianni hasn't really committed to either of the quarterbacks yet long term. So that's definitely something to look out for. But yeah, also Nick Sirianni, that press conference that will be unforgettable. I probably won't forget that for the rest of my lifetime.
Yeah, I didn't watch the
congratulations.
whole thing, but it wasn't he's not, at least for his first press conference, he was not the best orator and talker, to say the least. But
yeah, but I don't think you should be getting the amount of crap that he's getting. It's so stupid. I think it's beyond stupid to judge someone based off of one press conference. Obviously, he's not like Adam Gase, that was like high or like literally on bath salts when he was honest during his introductory press conference. The dude's eyes were like Beetlejuice eyes. He couldn't. Oh my God! There's so many problems with Adam Gase's press conference, but it's okay. He's not Adam Gase. He will not be Adam Gase.
Hopefully,
I think.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, I mean, no, he will not be Adam Gase. I mean, Nick Sirianni, he's a great guy. So, but yeah, I think those are my overall takeaways. I think. Yeah, this is going to be a fun next season. I mean, this season's not even over yet. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl podcast coming up later this week, and give us our thoughts and predictions on that. Whether we've updated them or changed them, we'll let you guys know then. But yeah, that's my final takeaways.
Yeah, quick sneak peek into the future, like Amal just said. Super Bowl podcast will be up sometime later this week. We're going to do some deep research into this, try to come up with our position matchups and all that fun stuff. But that is it for today. The QB Carousel moves on. The 2021 offseason seems hype already, and the 2020 season isn't even over. But yeah, that's it for me. Thank you for listening. Stay safe and peace out. Bye.